Because the whole point of yoga, as well as Taoism and Hinduism, as they say in their doctrine, is to relieve human suffering, not to become more flexible and be able to do handstand. This is very important because it happens a lot in Taoism as well, where people get hung up on post-training and moving practices where they're getting physically stronger, forgetting the whole idea is to relieve human suffering from an emotional and spiritual point of view, such as anxiety, PTSD, depression, loneliness, and just pain, human condition pain and demons. So if we keep the actual goal in mind, everything else is used to serve that, including strengthening the body. In Taoism, they would use Tao Yin, or the muscle tendon change Qi Gong, or I trained 35 years in Kung Fu and I overtrained. It broke my mind and body. Nothing helped me but Qi Gong. And now I want to share these methods with you. Welcome, guys. Let's answer some Qi Gong questions. First question from Kuruhabaki 4101. Okay. Simple question. Do you practice some handstands or headstands, just like in yoga or calisthenics, in Taoist practice? The answer is no. In Taoism, at least in what I practice in the Zhou Dynasty original Taoism, we don't do any kind of a handstand or headstand to strengthen the body, the muscle, or the tendon. In later Taoism, what they use is something called a muscle tendon change, or Qigong sets, Tao Yin, that is very similar to it, which is you move energy in a certain line, and then you use stretching, dynamic tension movements to strengthen the muscle and the tendon. But to me, the most important thing is why you're doing it in the first place. If you look at, since you mentioned yoga, if you look at yoga, the main idea is yoga, which is union with the divine, or union with the energy behind matter, which is saying the same thing. If you look at the energy behind matter, in physics they might call it zero-point energy, or the unknown energy, or dark energy. And in the West they might call it the East, sorry, they might call it the Tao, the Brahman, or the Buddha nature, depending. But despite the name, it's really the energy behind matter, right? And the difference between East and West is most West claim that this energy behind matter, they don't know if it's alive or not. With the exception of Nikola Tesla, Mark Planck, and Plato, some of the Western scientists claim it is alive. But a majority of them would say, we don't know what consciousness is. We don't know if this energy is alive. Whereas in the East, whether it's Buddhism, Taoism, or Hinduism, they claim this energy is fully alive, a presence, a formless presence. So the idea in yoga is, whether you're doing a doing practice like bhakti yoga, or you're doing a non-doing practice, the original jhana yoga. I'm sure you know this because you mentioned yoga, so I assume you do yoga. The idea is to merge into an altered state of consciousness, where it's like an ice cube melting into the ocean, where you finally get to merge into this energy behind matter. That is the entire point of yoga practice, with thousands of its different methods. So why do they bother standing in handstands, or why do they bother strengthening the body? It is just so they can do prolonged energy work without being in agony. Same thing as in Taoism, right? We also do prolonged sitting. Just like in Buddhism, they do prolonged sitting. Just like in Christian mystics, they do prolonged sitting. All the spiritual tradition meditates for a very long time. If your body is not strong, and you try to hold a straight posture for an extremely long time, your joints are going to ache, your back's going to ache, your neck's going to ache, your shoulders are going to ache, your scapula, your shoulder blade. Everything is going to start to hurt. It might take a very, very long time for you to get used to it. Some meditators will use the wall or chair rest to try to relax their back. Some people will take a long break and add walking meditation in between. But a smarter thing to do is just to strengthen your body to the point where you can hold prolonged sitting for a long time. And that was the reason for headstands and handstands and all the yoga postures to strengthen the body. It's important for us to review the goal of yoga and why they strengthen the body. Without knowing that, which in the West most people forgot, they overdo the stretching part and they overdo the strengthening part. A lot of times, like at least in Vancouver, people would just light up candles, decorate the room with all these shrines, do a lot of stretching and a lot of stuff to strengthen the body, and then they might just meditate for 5 minutes at the end of class. So they kind of got it backwards. Just because you're stretching and strengthening your muscles and your bones and your alignment doesn't make it spiritual at all. The whole point of all this strengthening physical exercise is to get you to be able to meditate a long time, not the other way around. If we remember that, then we have a chance to progress, right? Because the whole point of yoga, as well as Taoism and Hinduism, as they say in their doctrine, is to relieve human suffering, not to become more flexible and be able to do handstand. This is very important because it happens a lot in Taoism as well, where people get hung up on post-training and moving practices where they're getting physically stronger, forgetting the whole idea is to relieve human suffering from an emotional and spiritual point of view, such as anxiety, PTSD, depression, loneliness, and just pain, human condition, pain, and demons. So if we keep the actual goal in mind, everything else is used to serve that, including strengthening the body. In Taoism, they would use Dao Yin, or the muscle tendon change Qi Gong, or Ba Qi Jun. I mean, there's a lot of Qi Gong set that helps you strengthen the body to help you do that, or walk in a circle in Bagua, right? Whereas in yoga, they're very famous for stretching and very famous for their almost calisthenic work. And they're both really good. But the important thing is not to get hung up on a different style and also a different posture. The important thing is to understand the whole idea is to make your body, for meditation purposes, to make your muscles like flexible steel. So you want to work on strength but flexibility in the same time. So you don't have to use those classical practices to make your body flexible. You can just adopt a good stretching program. Nor do you need classical study in order to get a very strong muscle. You can just study modern weight training. That's more than enough to get your body strong enough so you can sit for a very long time. And some of the ways you can do that, I'll just walk you through that really quickly, is in terms of strength training, right? You basically have rehab, and then you have strength, and then you have explosiveness, and then you have sport-specific explosiveness, which you don't really need. So rehab is really based on bettering your joints. Is using extremely light weight, and you're basically moving one side of your body, working on balancing. This is very, very common in any type of rehab therapy, and is really good for people's joints. And the second training stage for strength training is once your joints are pretty healthy and you have good mobility, you have done the rehab training, then you move on to general strength, which is you're trying to get maximum strength. And that's what people see when people weight train, like squatting or bench press or deadlifts, for example, right? Once people pass that level of strength practice, then they qualify to do explosive strength, like a box jump, clapping push-up, Olympic weightlifting, for example. But above the baseline of strength first and level 2, you'll rip your tendons and probably get a lot of injuries. So from a Qigong point of view now, or meditation point of view, we only have to get strong enough that we can sit for hours with our spine straight. This being the case, the rehab level is important, but the maximum strength training in level 2, as well as explosive muscular practices, is not important for the meditator, is not necessary for the meditator. This is also important to realize because sometimes I talk to meditators, friends that meditate, and they don't have a teacher. They just download an app or something, right? And then they might read a blog or something and they realize, oh, I need to be strong. I need to be really strong with my muscles so I can sit for 2 or 3 hours straight in the meditation. And they're right about that. But then they go pay a personal trainer in a gym to help them get stronger. And again, it's based on either level 1 rehab, level 2 maximum strength, and level 3 explosive strength. And they go through the whole syllabus when it's completely unnecessary in draining their body as well as their money, right? You really only need a baseline of really basic strength and flexibility if you're planning to do it to supplement meditation. This is really important because most people either overdo it or they don't do it at all. And that's not good if you plan to sit a lot, especially for your hips and your back and your neck, right? When you're doing a lot of praying and a lot of sitting, you need a strong back. It's kind of like the same as martial art, right? If you look at the 3 layers of strength we just talked about, like in order to fight well, what do you really need? if you apply the wrong layer of strength that we're talking about, it actually hurts your martial art. If you apply the right amount of the 3 layers we talked about for strength, it betters your martial art. So again, it really is very, very important to know what your goals are and to pick the right protocol instead of just winging things, right? All right. And if anyone can do it, that's another thing. Like even explosive strength, you see guys in the gym that's 80 years old doing Olympic lifts. Same thing with stretching. Same thing with rehab training. Same thing with strength training, maximum strength training. And I think this is very important to throw out there because when I go to the gym, for example, and I'm exercising, sometimes I see a lot of gentlemen that's a lot older. And sometimes I eavesdrop and I hear them talking to a personal trainer or something. And they feel really discouraged. Like they seem to think strength training is just for younger people. That is 110% not true. You can always do it providing that you're willing to show up. And you don't even have to work that hard. You just got to go progressively until it becomes hard work, right? And that's very important if you plan to do something like Qi Gong. I'm not on Qi Gong in terms of prolonged sitting. And that's the first layer we're talking about. Preparing the body for sitting through making the body, the muscle and the tendon strong. But the next layer after that is your central nervous system, the actual amount of energy you have, which exercise is actually spending energy. But to gather energy, that's where the standing meditation or the standing Qigong practice and the moving Qigong practice, that's where that comes in. So to meditate well, you need to eat good, you need to sleep good, you need to be strong physically, you need to be flexible physically in terms of your muscle, you need standing and moving Qigong. If you have all 4 of those, then you have good energy so you can stay awake when you're meditating, and you have good muscle so you can hold your spine straight. Now you stand a chance to be a really good meditator, which means you can pass through the level of meditation. The first level being able to stop your mind from thinking or overthinking, to quiet your mind to stillness, to de-stress, which is what most people think meditation is, but it's just a foundation. The next layer is to overcome boredom, because boredom is basically leading to loneliness. And then you get into detoxing of the emotions, experiencing bliss and inner peace. And then we can talk about spirituality and merging into almost a trance state where we talk about the dissolving process, what we talked about the first thing in today's podcast. So you see how it's a full circle, right? You need to get all the layers in place so you can do prolonged sitting. On the other hand, if you're only planning to sit to de-stress, then you're only going to sit for 50 minutes. Then none of this stuff really matters. You don't have to do standing Qigong. You don't have to do moving Qigong. You don't need to do all that to get enough energy to stay awake, since you're only going to meditate for 50 minutes. You don't have to lift weights. You don't have to stretch. You don't have to do muscle tendon change to get your muscle and tendon strong and your joints strong so you can sit a long time. You're only planning to sit a little bit to de-stress. But assuming you're sticking to the classical objective of meditation, which is to overcome depth anxiety, to overcome general anxiety, to overcome depression, basically to overcome human suffering, because it's very effective for that, to have emotional healing, in other words, or to go farther in that into spirituality. In that case, it is so important to prepare the body to do the work, because doing prolonged sitting meditation without preparing the body preparing the body first, almost every single time in history, if you look at Buddhism, Hinduism, and Taoism, people get hurt. And sometimes they don't recover that well, right? So anyways, please leave your comment below. We can talk about this some more, because it's actually a very important part, especially in today's society where people might just download some kind of meditation program and try to wing it without the proper protocols. All right, if you're interested in training with us, follow the links below. We have a meditation program as well as a Taoist community. Follow the links below. See you next time, guys.